Everybody has a story. Here's mine. My story begins when I was 3. When I was just 3 years old, my parents separated, leaving my mom to raise me by herself. Being an only child with a single mother in the United States was a new and difficult challenge for her. Fortunately, my mom was a hardworking woman, straight out of Lithuania, with a hard drive for working and doing whatever it takes to make a life for herself and me in the United States. The majority of my youth, I would say, was spent learning. Like all other kids, we don't know much, and we need to learn most of it. But for me, that was a little different. See, for me, my first language was Lithuanian, and if you don't know that, it's a small little country in Eastern Europe. For a large majority of our history, we've been part of Russia, kind of assumed and kind of associated with that area. But in the late 1900s, we separated and are now our own country. We have our own language, our own basketball team, our own national anthem, our own everything. That's played a large part in my culture and my uprising because I would say a lot of what I do and a lot of the ways I think and feel and people I know is related to being Lithuanian. That was no different from language. Learning Lithuanian was my first language, and that set me up to learn Spanish pretty easily, but unfortunately for me, I was behind in English at a young age. Going into first grade, I had to take English classes so that I would catch up with all the other students, and in those classes, I was sitting there with one of my friends, close friends when I was young, a Lithuanian guy, and we were all trying to learn English. I can't say I remember much about it, but I do remember having to miss recess and playtime so that I can catch up on English lessons and be able to get to speed with everybody else. My summers as an only child and a single parent meant that I was going to visit my dad, who was back in Lithuania. I would fly out to Lithuania every summer to go visit my grandma, the rest of my family, my dad, and see them. That was how I got a lot of my culture. I spent months and months at a time out in Lithuania, and that led me to speak Lithuanian pretty well. I speak Lithuanian, I'd say relatively well. I would say damn near say perfectly. I do have some words and some missteps, I would say, but the amount of time I spent there has allowed me to gain cultural appreciation and just dive into it and actually be immersed in it firsthand. Sitting there spending months at a time. There was times where I was in Lithuania for 6 months, and there was times where over the summer I was in there for 2.5 months. I'd be in America for a week out of the summer, and all the other time would be down there. And that is something I'm really grateful for. A lot of people don't have that experience. They can't say they know what it feels like to live in another country for such a long time and be immersed in that experience and that food, the language, the culture, the people. Although Lithuanian culture is, I would say, interesting one. There's some highs, some lows, whatever it might be, whatever your outlook on it might be. It was still an experience nonetheless. But now we go back to the United States, going through elementary and middle school. I can't say elementary and middle school were the best for me. Obviously, being of Lithuanian descent and somebody that doesn't fully assimilate into American culture, it was an interesting experience to say the least. Making friends was an interesting task. I wouldn't say it was the easiest thing. I would say it was a little bit easier because I was such a social person. But up until I would say 5th, 6th grade, I would have a very small, select few people that I was really close with and my friends. But after that, I feel like my social skills and my just social energy, my extrovert energy started to spread, and it made it a lot easier to connect and talk to other people. When we talk about elementary school doesn't have much going on in it. We had some interesting experiences, some fights, some interesting stories, I would say. I don't know, not too much. Elementary school is pretty calm, but then we go to middle school, and middle school is when you're going through puberty. You enter middle school when you're 10, 11, and then you finish when you're 14. So you're into those I don't know the word I'm looking for. Your teenage years. And that's when emotions are high and people are growing and, getting older and things are happening. People are getting girlfriends and having their first kiss. So it was an interesting time. Bullying is definitely a thing that happened. This is when people started getting attitudes and started looking down on other people. I won't say I was the most fit person when I was younger. I was a little bit chubbier. I would say a lot chubbier actually. Not fat, but definitely on the bigger side. I used to get called Dumbo because I was bigger, and when I had my hair short, my ears are pretty wide out, and kids would call me Dumbo. So that was something that stuck with me. But nonetheless, I would say I was still pretty athletic. I was a pretty smart guy. I got straight A's all through middle school, which was pretty cool accomplishment, being the first person in my family to go to an American school. And then basketball was a big thing. I started, playing basketball. I've been playing basketball since I was like first grade. But once you get into middle school, you got the middle school team, you got real practices, you got morning practices, after school practices. It becomes a much serious thing. I would say the other the biggest part of my teenage era would be video games. I mean, the amount of time I've spent on video games in my life, I believe I mentioned it in a couple of my videos before, is ridiculous. I mean, it was Friday to Sunday. I couldn't play video games during the week, but Friday to Sunday, it was, 9-10 hours a day, if not more sometimes. And then once I got into high school, it was every day of the week. So that's pretty much summarized my pre-teenage age and into my teenage years. So that was a big thing, anywhere from the 360 to PlayStation 4 and then to PC. Video games have played a large role in developing who I am, and then my entire childhood, I would say. I'd say I was playing, the first Call of Duty I ever touched was Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Actually, I don't know if it was Call of Duty 4 or Modern Warfare, World at War. Those are the two Call of Duties I remember playing. I remember playing World at War Zombies back when I was like 5. I think it was 5 when I played it for the first time. And, that was crazy. That was a life-changing experience, and I never looked back, honestly. But middle school was fine. Made my friends, started, had my first kiss. That was an interesting thing. Middle school was pretty interesting. You continue to learn. I was always ahead in math. Math hasn't always been my strong suit, so that was cool. But it wasn't anything crazy. Once we get to high school is where a lot of more interesting things start to happen, and you start to meet your closer friends. You start to get more interesting experiences and go from there. My high school experience, I would say, is a little bit different from everybody else's. My freshman year, I went to a high school called Hinsdale South. I would say we had around 1,000 to 1,500 students, right around that range, in my entire school. It was a much different than my next high school that I'll talk about in a little bit, but it was cool. I had my friends, a couple of my friends from middle school. I started making my true friends in high school. Some of my, I would say my best friend I met in high school, and we're still friends to this day. So that was cool. A lot of experiences, a lot of friends that I made for, I would say, a long amount of time. And it was interesting. I played on the basketball team. I was on the freshman basketball team. I was a starter on the A team. Had that. We had, parties. People started throwing parties. It was going to that, meeting a lot more people. You go from a middle school where you had 200 kids, maybe less than that, in your school. I think it was less than that. I think it was like 160. To going to a high school with over 1,000 people. And then, you're immersed in all these people. It's pretty crazy to think about. So that was an interesting experience, a crazy change of pace. I forgot to mention, I got my first job. My first job was when I was caddying. I got that my 7th grade. It was April of 2016. Yes, April of 2016 is when I got my first job as a caddy. So it was a month before my 13th birthday. And that was a pretty pivotal role in my life, I would say. I can't believe I skipped over this. I mean, I was caddying over the summer. I was caddying probably 4 days a week. I had to be there 5 in the morning, and I would leave around noon. So, that's 7 hours as a kid, dedicating your summer. And at this point, I wasn't going to Lithuania as I would go for less. I would go for maybe a month if I even went. So that was interesting. But I started making my first money. That was interesting. Most people's first job, I would say, is working at a Walmart, fast food restaurant, Dunkin' Donuts, whatever. But I was caddying through the hot summers, talking to older dudes and getting to know their stories. So that was interesting. Really, I would say, monumental part of my life and growing up, because that gave me some of my most essential skills that I have now about hard work, money, my appreciation for money, and how to make it and how to save it and how to keep on to it, and why I try and find new ways to make it. But now back to high school. Sophomore year was the change up. I ended up moving to a new place. It wasn't far, it's around a 20-minute drive from my old high school, but it changed which high school I went, and it threw me into a completely new environment. So as I mentioned, my first high school was 1,500 people, and I would say that of those people, it was like 45% white, 30% black, and then like the rest was like a mix between Hispanic, Asians, and all that. The high school that I moved into, my second high school, was, I would say, 3,500 people, and it was like 70% white, like 15% black, and then 15% a mix of the rest. So it was a little bit of a change in the amount of people and the demographic of people. I had always grown up with a lot more diversity in my classes, and then going to this was different. So it was an interesting change, to say the least. From freshman year, walking into my 7 a.m. class and seeing kids fighting outside, to going to my second high school and people pulling up in brand new Porsche 911s. Just a little bit of a change up. Nonetheless, back to the point, my sophomore year of high school was interesting because I had no friends. I went to a summer basketball camp and I met some people, trying to make my friends. I've met some people that pretty cool, people I still talk to every once in a while. I would say some good people. But once school started, I had nobody. It was a free-for-all trying to find new friends because people already had their cliques. They had their friend groups. And, that first lunch, I remember the first lunch when I went to that school, and I was like, bro, what do I do? And I walked up to a random table with one person that I knew. I was like, hey, is it cool if I sit here? And they took me in, and I'm really grateful for that. I appreciate it. They became my first friends, I would say. And from there, I started to meet more people, make my friends, and make my own group of people that I would continue to hang out with for the rest of high school. I met some of my closest friends. I would say one of my top 3 closest friends at that year. No, not that year, the next year, my junior year. But still, at that high school, met people. I played basketball. I was on the sophomore basketball team. I went to football games for my old high school, for my new high school. I had maintained my friendships with my old friends while also building new friendships, so that was nice. And honestly, I would say I'm very grateful because I kind of would say I fit in and intertwined with them pretty well. I feel like what I did was ideal, and it made the transition much easier than it would be for some people. And I definitely dedicate that to my social ability and how I'd say extroverted. I won't say extroverted, but how easily I find it to talk to people. But as high school continued to go on, you had your same old high school stuff, had your parties, your football games. I had my basketball games, played varsity basketball my junior and senior year. Unfortunately, COVID cut us out junior year. We were in the Sweet 16, about to play in the Sweet 16, and we got cut out by COVID. We were on track to play Whitney Young, I believe, with DJ Stewart, who is now a part of the Bulls. So that would have been an interesting experience. One of my teammates is actually playing D1 right now. He plays at Oakland. So that's also pretty cool to say. But underlying in the looming thing that continued to approach was college and what do you want to do after high school. So that became a thing, studying for the SAT, taking the ACT, taking AP classes, getting your credits and your high GPA and whatnot. But senior year rolls around and I have to figure out where I'm going to college. And initially I was planning on going to UIC, University of Illinois at Chicago, just because it allowed me to stay home and then commute back and forth from school. And I feel like that would have been a pretty economic option, and it would have been a good option, not to say the least. It's a good school, Chicago's nice, staying at home. I would continue to reselling something that I did in high school. Funny enough, I think I started senior year. No, I started junior year. Junior year is when I started my reselling. And reselling was something that honestly changed my life forever. Because I met some people, some cool experiences, some scary experiences, but I also made a lot of money, and it gave me that first sense of making real money. Like money that's, it's just like, what I was making caddying doesn't compare with what I was making as a reseller. And that really set the tone. It gave me that next level understanding of appreciation of money. And that's when I started to, I built a business. It was a full operating business. Had clientele that I was selling to, buying from, going to events, driving out. I had my expenses, everything. I had everything going for me during that time. So that was a very interesting experience. At this time, I also picked up roofing as a manual job. In my life, I've had a lot of jobs: caddying, reselling, roofing, bartending, a couple internships, whatnot. I did whatever, shoveled snow. I did whatever I could to make money, and that's something that I dedicate, and I learned from my mom growing up because she was one of the hardest working people I know in my life, and that taught me to do it myself, being a man and being somebody that wants to provide and somebody that wants to set up a life that they will enjoy living in the future. Back to the point of college, I started applying for colleges, I applied to like 10, 12 different colleges. I really wanted to go to University of Miami in Florida, but unfortunately that cost was a little too high. College is not a joke when it comes to costs, and people aren't kidding with college costs. So make sure you do your research and make sure you don't screw yourself the rest of your life. But so that option was out. NYU would have been cool. I didn't get into NYU, but it would have been really expensive too. So I wanted to go UIC, and then my mom really told me to consider going to U of I, where I go now, because it's true college campus. It's away from home. It's like living my own life. I live in my own place now. I got to cook my own food, do everything by myself. I used to live in my fraternity house, which is a little different when somebody cooks your food and you have people cleaning for you. But now it's like I'm living on my own for real. As that goes on, I obviously got accepted into the University of Illinois, went through with high school graduation, had my friends, had my fun, 18th birthday. Everything that happened was, an event that pushed me to be where I am now. And now we get to college. Freshman year of college was crazy. Freshman year of college is one of the most interesting times of my life because I was living on my own. I was living in a dorm with one of my friends that I played travel basketball with when I was younger, and we were in a town filled with people our age and no supervision. It was mind-blowing. It was hard to wrap my head around, but the amount of people, I went from a middle school with like under 200 people to 1,000 people to 3,500 to 45,000 people. It's like, what? Like the amount of, you cannot meet everybody here. It's impossible to. And even if you do, you're not going to remember them all. But I met my people, I found my friends, I joined a fraternity, did everything I had to. I went out with my friends, picked up basketball, intramural basketball, had my classes, had my stupid 8 a.m.s and 9 a.m.s freshman year. Pro tip and advice, don't take 8 a.m.s, you're not going to go to them. It just gets harder as you get older anyway. Anywho, freshman year was interesting. I joined a fraternity, went through the pledgeship process. That was an experience, really grateful for it. Met some close friends, met some of my best friends too, I must say. Friends that I've traveled the world with, friends that I have shared experiences with, good and bad, but still some of my best friends. Freshman year was honestly I'd say freshman year is the most interesting year of college because of just how new everything is. Everything's so new, and everything that you do is the first time that you do it. But as college went on, I got a job as a bartender, and that took a lot of my time. I was committed to that. I started making money. I wanted to continue doing it because it's good money. I had things to pay for. I had expenses now and things that I wanted to do, and everything costs money, so that's why you gotta work. But it went on, met some people, made my friends, continued to do things, go to football games, basketball games, and whatnot. But sophomore and junior year just kind of went on, I got a girlfriend. That was interesting, and it's interesting. Some of the stuff you do, everybody's experience is different. I would say my experience, University of Illinois is more of a bar school than it is a party school, so that's a little bit different from every other college town, I would say. And we still have our parties, but, going to the bars is a much more prominent activity that happens among, students here. And now we go to senior year, and as a senior, I start to get this realization. It's like my time here is coming to an end, and once you graduate college, it's kind of like there is no other environment like this where you're stuck with 45,000 people of a similar age with zero supervision and the ability to do whatever you want. So I feel like as I get closer to May, which is my graduation, it's like starting to sink more and more in that it's like you can't do any of this once you graduate, really, and it's like you might as well take advantage of it now. That's why you want to make sure that you see the people, you hang out with people, you make sure you make those memories, you create those friendships that will last a lifetime. You might not be able to do some of the dumb stuff that you do in college as a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, but the people you do those things with, those are friendships that can last for a lifetime, that you can meet up with, talk about it, and reminisce, and even make more memories in the future with. But to wrap it all up, I would like to say, I feel like I'm standing up for a speech. Everybody's journey is different. I would say that you can't really judge your journey on somebody else's journey, because like a famous quote says, like, you can't judge your year one with somebody's year 10. They have 9 years on you. So it's like everybody's experience and everything they've done in their prior changes the way that their future is set up. So it doesn't really matter where you are in your process. It's just about making sure that you get where you want to be, you do what you want to do, and you make sure that you live the life that you want to live.